Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Fresh Set. I'm Sabrina,
And I'm Kevin.
and we are back together. Our last
Back together.
couple of episodes have been um, continuing our rivalries uh,
Series.
series. I'm like, my gosh, it's been a long day, guys. Rivalry series. And so we're back because there was obviously a race, which was the Las Vegas Grand Prix, which we will get into all of that in a little bit. But yeah, it was
Yeah,
exciting. Exciting race. We're tired.
we are. Yeah, it was a long. I mean, you tried to stay up for qualifying. I stayed up for qualifying.
Yeah.
I've gotten, I think, a combined 6 hours sleep over the last 2 days, 2 nights. So
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. Yeah.
Yeah. I just kept, I fell asleep for qualifying and I would just wake up right at the end when like they'd be yelling as like who's out.
Yeah.
Or who was on pole. And I was
Which
like,
you got
oh,
the most
okay.
important information.
Right. So that was all I saw for that. But and then obviously we stayed awake for the race, which was at 1 a.m. for us, which ended
Eastern
at
time, yeah.
Eastern. So ending at like
Three.
2:30
Yeah.
ish.
By the time you get through,
Yeah, yeah, the
you didn't stay up. I
ridiculousness.
did.
No.
Yeah. I watched the long drawn out, worthless, meaningless motorcade to a
Yeah,
different podium so they can have
an interview.
an interview with Terry Crews and Jensen Button, and then a ride back to the podium. It just makes no sense. Just
No.
do it all.
Just do
Anyway,
it all. Yeah,
we'll
we'll
talk
get
about it.
into it.
Yeah, we'll talk.
But first and foremost, it is the Las Vegas Grand Prix. The second Las Vegas Grand Prix. There was a lot of hype around it, which there was last year, but
It's technically the fourth because
true.
they put up the last
True.
three pole sitters
Yeah.
for during qualifying, which one was Alain Prost, I think it was, and there was somebody else. So they had 2 years before that, and it was a little dinky track in like
Yeah.
a parking lot, basically.
Yeah. This is the resurgence of
A
the
proper
new.
Grand Prix in Las
Yeah.
Vegas. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And there was a lot of hoopla around it.
Well,
Being
there's
the
a lot.
second year, I was like,
Are you talking about fanfare, or are you talking about?
yeah, just like
Yeah,
all the upcoming the week before, like there was just seemed to be so much going on before the race even like and not about the race, just like okay, it's the Las
yeah,
Vegas Grand Prix, but here's this. We're opening a club. We're doing this.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah. Gordon Ramsay has his Gordon Ramsay's garage, where it's like he
yeah.
was making food for everybody, and like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was. I mean, the States always does it big and beyond. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
Miami does it.
Yeah.
You kind of don't really see it when it comes to Austin,
Right.
uh, but Vegas, obviously, they're gonna do it as big as possible,
As
and
big as
every
possible.
company wants in it.
Yeah.
Every company wants in it.
Yeah. The ads, I mean, I
The
was
celebrity
yeah.
showcases or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was in the States for a little bit and watching sports on ESPN, every commercial, no matter what you were watching, every commercial was about the Las Vegas Grand Prix. And I'm like, they
Yeah,
don't do this for any Grand
no.
Prix. But
Well,
yeah,
every
anyways,
other Grand Prix is not paying for it.
true. True. But yeah, so we started, I guess,
Well, we go into
on
the weekend kind of.
Thursday.
There are some, yeah, Thursday evening. So here, where we were watching, it was 9:30 was the start of FP1.
Yeah.
But going into the weekend, we kind of had there were a couple of things that, like, I mean, this weekend could bring about. One,
Right.
as long as Lando doesn't lose by more than 3 points, he would still technically be in title contention. So this is
Yeah.
the first real race that Max could. Well, I guess not the first real race, but uh, I guess the closest he's ever been to clinching the title
Yeah.
this year so far. Um, there was also, we have that battle in the constructors between the Ferraris and the McLarens and the Red Bulls, I
And
guess,
Red Bull still
and the Red
looking
Bulls.
yeah.
if you're asking Marco, if you only have one car putting up points, you're not really in a constructor's.
Yeah.
He's not wrong. He's
He's
not
not
wrong.
wrong at all. And
Not wrong.
McLaren's second car is kind of not putting up the points he was in the beginning, Oscar.
No, no.
So,
And then there
yeah,
was all the questions of is Williams going to be able to race this weekend because of
yeah,
all their damage they had before?
yeah, yeah, which continues this weekend.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one of the other things that came up during the press conference, was Max, which has been a recurring thing, is Max, the swearing. The swearing has come up again. And Max finally kind of talking about how he's been the only one that's really been penalized. Charles has been 5,000 euro fine plus another 5,000 if he doesn't swear, which we're going to get into that. Um, but Max makes the comment of, it's only when I do something does
It get
like
brought up.
I get really in
Yeah, yeah,
trouble.
of course.
Everybody
And
else gets a slap on the wrist, and he's not wrong.
he's not wrong. The focus has always been on him. I mean, this is the reason why
Yeah,
it came up
yeah,
because every other driver's sworn, every other driver has treated their engineer that they're talking to uh, in the not the nicest of manners. We'll put
yeah,
it that way.
yeah,
And it's never come up.
yeah,
It seems like the FIA has a thing for Max
yeah.
for
And
whatever reason.
after Brazil, plenty of drivers were swearing. And there was no talk
Nothing.
about, penalties for them or anything. So he was pretty pissed about it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's going to continue to be pissed because, again, we'll get into it, but there was a lot of swearing this weekend.
Well, and there was by one driver, which is going to be
Yeah.
interesting because
Yes.
we'll talk about what we'll get into some thoughts about what potentials
Yeah.
for penalties we could see
Yeah.
just by
For
our
sure.
own our
Yeah.
own our own
Yeah.
imaginations.
For sure. For sure. But yeah, jumping into free practice, and I'm going to let you talk about it because I did not pay attention to it.
Yeah, I did watch the free practice. I stayed up for most of them. I think I actually stayed up for all of them, but there wasn't a lot going on. The big thing with free
Normal.
practice, there were no red flags, not like we saw in Brazil. Um, the only real thing, there was a few yellow flags. I don't believe we even had a double waved yellow in free practice. It was basically, I mean, the track was not new, but it was not race ready. So for anybody that doesn't know, when it comes to Vegas, usually any other track, especially street tracks, anything in the circuit is blocked off probably like a week before, so they can get the track ready, right?
Mhm.
Whether they gotta weld some manhole covers, which was I'm sure there were people looking out for those this weekend.
Yeah.
Um, weld the manhole covers, get the barriers in place, whatever they have to do, put up all the lights, all that stuff. Vegas does this like starting the week before, but it's really in the last 3 days that they finalize everything. They start the grandstands, all that stuff, but when
Yeah.
it comes to barriers and all that stuff, everything within the last 3 days, and they said it. I think it was like 1,700 workers
Hmm.
working on this for God knows how many hours, or they do it in shifts or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, and that was so this track is and it's driven during the day,
Yeah.
so it gets closed down this track 3 hours before they're ready to go, and they got to put everything else back in place in these 3 hours that they need to close off any openings, whatever they have, because Vegas told them, their walking traffic between the casinos is their biggest money makers. That's
Yeah.
how all of these companies, all these casinos, hotels, that's how they make all their money.
Stores are being
Yeah,
blocked by the track,
they,
so they need to
yeah. So that's it's
figure
open
this
until
out.
open until 3 hours before the session starts. So
Yeah.
FP1, and then it'll be closed until after FP2. Then they'll open it back up eventually
Hmm.
after another 3 hours, whatever it is. So it's a total of what's that? We're looking at about
8.
10 hours,
Yeah, 9
8 to 10
hours.
hours. At the most, probably 12. And so the track is just not ready. And you saw that right off of FP1. There was no racing line. There was no rubber being put down other than the whole one that's been transferred from streetcars,
Regular,
which
yeah.
is not. that much because they're not driving at speeds that are going to
No,
put rubber down.
no.
Um, and there is dust everywhere. It
Hmm.
is very as evident that they're racing in a desert because I you couldn't see. It looked like the visibility was like in the well, at least from the camera angles, was like you were driving in the rain. Like you could see somebody come around a corner, and it
Yeah,
wasn't until that other car was 200 meters from the camera where they actually started to become visible again
yeah. You could
through the
see.
dust. Yeah.
Yeah,
So there was a lot of work that had to be put into making this track ready just by them driving,
yeah,
which they did also have. I think in between one of the practice sessions, they did have another race series in between. So that also did help put some. I think it might have been the Porsche one. It, I saw. Well, somebody that I'd follow on social media had they were there for the F1, and they were also showing. I think it was the Porsche Cup series or the Porsche series, whatever it is. Um, Down there in between the practice sessions.
yeah.
So they were doing their best to put as much rubber on the ground as possible because they were sliding a lot, and this is
Yeah.
not a forgiving track. There is a
No.
lot of straight, but there is a lot of chicane. There's a lot of S's. There's a
Hmm.
lot of. There's not a lot of Tech Pro. It's
No.
all in those turns. It's all concrete. The Tech Pro
Yeah.
is only on runoff areas.
Yeah. And I mean it's you could see it definitely in the race where it's not there's only really I think two spots that you could like get track limits. A couple people did get them, but there is no let's just move over kind of thing. Like you're really just driving on everyday streets that like you said are open.
Yeah,
So it is a hard track and going into it, you kind of don't really. Again, last year was the first year that this group of drivers would have driven in Vegas, and coming back the second year doesn't sound like they really like it. Like
I
some of
think
them
they
enjoyed the
I
like,
think they enjoy the track itself because they get to go
yeah,
flat out. There
yeah,
is some interesting turns,
yeah,
but just the extra stuff you have to deal with. I mean, last year they
yeah,
had the manhole issue. This year, the amount of plastic bags that I saw making their way onto the track,
yeah.
is potential to ruin anybody's race if it gets into a duct or a brake system,
Which it did,
which it did
ruin
exactly.
someone's
Yeah,
race.
I mean, they had the camera on the straight at one point, and I saw just on that small section of straight 3 plastic bags just
Yeah,
going around the track. It was ridiculous. I mean,
yeah,
and you can't control it.
no,
You have 50 million people in Vegas as
yeah,
tourists or whatever, and
yeah,
they're drunk throwing their shit around. And
yeah,
so it's going
pretty,
to make its way onto the track. And if you're
yeah,
not the race director helping to litter around, um,
yeah,
it's going to make its way.
yeah, for sure. Um, so
But that
that
was
was,
it. FP1, there wasn't
yeah,
really a lot. We had the Mercedes looking good. The Ferrari looked good in the first session. Second session, not so great, I believe. Um, but the Mercedes looked fast for whatever they were doing. They looked really good. We had the problems with the Red Bulls who were not happy with their running. They were nowhere near ready. Max was
no,
complaining about his steering. Max was complaining about his drag and the downforce. So much to the point where they actually had to cut away parts of the rear wing to try
yeah,
and relieve some of that drag on the rear
yeah,
wing because everybody else had pretty small wings.
mm-hmm,
Um, and yeah, they had a Dremel just taking it to the carbon fiber in the back of the wing in
yeah,
the garage, which I didn't
and
realize you can actually cut into your car to make more space.
apparently can do anything.
Yeah,
And they,
wasn't parked for me.
and I think they didn't say they didn't, I don't think they brought the wrong
No,
wing. It
they
was just that they thought this one would work
yeah
here.
yeah there was the
Yeah,
speculation that they said oh they brought the wrong wings or they don't have they couldn't get another wing sent to them, which I mean,
yeah,
I'm assuming it goes against the cost cap, and they're
yeah,
probably pretty close to a cost cap after their
yeah,
engine penalties
yeah,
and damages and all that. So it wasn't really feasible for them to do that.
right.
So they decided, you know what,
Yeah.
let's just settle on the alternative.
On cutting it.
Yeah, yeah,
And they probably didn't want like with him being so close to clinching the title, probably doesn't make sense to waste the money or the cost cap towards this race. Should they need it again, it makes sense saving it for the other two
Of
races
course, yeah.
just in case he didn't
And I
win this
mean,
weekend.
if it's going to cost you, I don't even know how much that would cost. I would say at a
Yeah.
minimum 50 grand,
Yeah.
right? Like a $50,000 to get wings there to a track there where you don't look like you're the fastest anyway. So how
No.
much is that downforce going to help you?
Right.
Or sorry, not downforce, that drag, that relief
Yeah.
and drag going to help you. And when, you know, sorry to bring it back on Checo here, but if your second car is not going to help you in your race to the constructors,
Yeah.
does it make sense to
Yeah.
take a potential penalty at the end of the year because you're going to exceed the cost cap?
Yeah. No. It doesn't make sense. Um so then we have qualifying, which ends up being on a Friday again because of timing for us. And Q1, a shocker, but not a shocker this season. Uh, we have Checo Perez being the outlier who isn't really an outlier and being out in Q1 anymore.
No, and you
Uh,
kind of just saw the writing on the wall. You see him like
yeah,
in 14th, then he gets knocked down to 15th. He's that driver at risk. And then of all people, of all people, Liam Lawson is the one to kick him out of Q1. I keep
one.
Q1.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just not a good showing.
no,
He for especially his street track. He's supposed to be the king of street
street.
tracks,
Yeah,
and the LFA of street tracks, if you will.
yeah,
And he wasn't. He was much better in the race than he was in the
in qualifying.
qualifying
Yeah,
session. He wasn't even anywhere really in the practice sessions.
right. Yeah. So I mean, he was really the only outlier, but again, not really an outlier because this has kind of been consistent for him
Yeah,
the last little bit.
I would say, both Aston's being out and Zhao making it through to Q2
Yeah.
was, which you brought up because I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
I'm just so used to assuming that
That he's
there's going to be two
Bottas.
snakes
Yeah.
out in Q1.
Yeah.
But he actually did make it through, so I mean, good on him. He had a pretty good
Yeah.
Friday.
Mm,
One
yeah.
funny thing is, or one thing I noticed is Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll was not out on track until 2 minutes left. He only had, or did he go out first and then came back out for two? Sorry, he came out for 2 laps. So I think he went out. He had something maybe that didn't feel right. Went back to the garage, and they were just working on his car. They got him back out with 2.5 minutes left, so enough to get
To
one
just,
flying lap in.
yeah.
And he qualified in a fantastic 20th. Are you not just like, if you're Lawrence Stroll and you've got your son in there who has an affinity for, we'll just call them goofs.
Little mishaps.
Yeah, well, yeah. And you're on a track that is slippery, it's tight. Um, do you really want him? Are your nuts not just tight and sucked back into your body, sending him back out there to do one hot lap?
They're like just praying that he just makes it
I
around.
I'm like, why send him out there? And then
Yeah.
he qualifies in 20th. Like he didn't even do
You didn't even
anything.
try.
I'm
You
just like, what is going on?
you just went for a little,
What's the point
pardon
of
the
it?
pun, you just went for a little stroll
And,
around the
yeah,
track.
like if you can't even put yourself ahead of the stake,
Yeah.
now like
Yeah.
I'm like, why risk the money?
Yeah.
And especially because he had such a visible f up in Brazil, which cost you money.
Yeah.
Why would you do this again?
Yeah. It just doesn't make sense
With 2.5
at
minutes
all.
left, just leave him
Yeah.
there. Just end
Just
it.
take the 20th and move on.
Yeah.
So then we have, yeah, I woke up, I saw they're like Perez is out, and I was like, oh great, and I was like, oh, Joe is into Q2, great, and then
When
I
it
went
came
back to
to
sleep.
when it when it came to Q2, I mean, really, there wasn't a lot of note. Really, you're gonna have the main people out again. We had
Yeah,
Lawson out. We had Colapinto was out. Zhao out. Magnuson out. Ocon out. Lewis Hamilton puts himself in first in that session. So again, The Red Bulls, the Mercedes looking really good. That was the biggest, probably shocker, not shocker, but well, yeah, I guess I would
Shocker.
call it a shocker. Yeah, yeah. Of Q2 was Lewis putting himself up into P1.
Yeah,
But otherwise, nothing really out of the ordinary. Ocon actually putting himself up into 11th was
pretty good for
not
him.
bad,
Yeah. And then
and
Franco
Gasly
was
making another Q1, Q3
another Q3.
every time.
Colapinto had a really good, I mean, he was running
Oh yeah,
well
what am I saying?
in Q2, but
What am I saying?
he, with like, I think it was like 20, 15 seconds left in the session,
He's on another flying lap, obviously.
and he was doing, his timing was pretty good, and then he just,
Yeah, he comes. It's weird. Like he comes out of a corner. It looks like
yeah,
he just misjudged. He comes. I think it was during the one of the S's,
yeah,
and it looks like he just misjudges the way he comes out of one corner,
yeah,
and it looks like he just doesn't really turn
yeah,
enough. Like he's trying to cut it as close as possible and cuts it way too close.
yeah, and just rips apart the car.
Yeah.
um Against the side of like, I think it was like you said, 200 feet, 200 meters, I guess,
Close to it. Probably 100, at least 150 meters just of
of
debris.
debris.
Because I
And
mean, at that point, like his front wheels, I saw the greatest meme of it looking like the Batmobile from Christopher Nolan's Batmobile, where the wheels are so close together, they're like this.
they're just, yeah,
And so, like, because he crunches one wheel, then he crunches
yeah,
the other one against the wall, and he's just a passenger at this point. He just
yeah,
drags across that wall
yeah.
for however long it is.
And it was a hard hit. I think they, like, you could see he was a little
50G.
shaken up. It was a 50G hit for
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, the
um
medical car was deployed right away, which the medical car gets deployed after a 20G, automatically a 20G hit, which they
yeah,
got that alert or whatever it is from their
yeah.
data.
He said he was fine right away, but I mean, it's a big hit. Now being Williams' fifth
Fifth
accident
damage.
in 2 weeks, two race
Two
weekends.
races, yeah, two
Yeah.
race weekends, yeah, yeah. And,
And
and the look on that garage, I mean, everybody was just like, "We're in Vegas, we're gonna go, we're gonna have not, we'll have a good
couple of
time, whatever."
beers.
Yeah, yeah, enjoy the strip, maybe walk around, play a couple of slots. No,
No.
no, they had to completely repair another car.
Yeah. And again, like you said, for a team that wasn't even sure that they would have cars on track for Vegas, and they were able to make it happen.
They
And
they did, and they had enough replacement parts
yeah.
brought there just in case they had a
Yeah.
damage. Thank God.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And then there was actually, they released a statement, Williams, that, they were going to be seeing if Colapinto would even be able to drive, if the car would be. He actually needed to get medical clearance again because of the force of what he hit the wall.
Yeah, he would have
Um,
to do it again in the morning just to ensure that he was
yeah,
fine.
yeah, and yeah, so he basically ended qualifying when then we had a delayed Q3 because of that. And again, that's when I woke up and I was like, oh my God, he's crashed. And I'm back to sleep for the second time. And then yeah, and then we have Q1, which is the shocker.
well,
The order is just a mess.
well, yeah. I mean, first of all, you have you know Hulkenberg who makes it into Q3, Yuki who makes it into Q3, Gasly who makes it into Q3, which I guess they've all been trending in that way in the
Yeah.
last couple of races. So, surprise, not surprise, kind of. Um, when you get through that first session, there's not a lot surprising. Not the first session, the first run. The second run, when they go out, you're just seeing fastest lap after fastest lap after fastest lap, and the order is changing racer by racer by racer. At one point, Oscar's up there. I mean, I think it was one of the first ones. Lando makes it up there. Max never makes it. Does he make it into P1? I don't believe he does. I think he actually slots in behind the Ferraris. The Ferraris go 1 and 2. So Leclerc gets into first. Carlos gets into jumps him, gets into first. Gasly comes through, somehow puts himself between the two Ferraris. I don't know how that happened, how he split those two.
Yeah.
And it's not like he put in the first time and somebody else just didn't do a better job. He actually just split them on his own merit.
Yeah.
um, then Russell comes through in P1 on provisional pole, and Hamilton's on his last run, um, and just has his time deleted. And he was on a decent run. I don't know if it would have been enough for first,
Yeah.
but he puts all four wheels off track at some point. He loses the back end coming out of a turn, puts all four wheels off track. He gets his time deleted, which is disappointing for him, obviously, because that's the only time he put up
Yeah.
was that. And so he's going to start in 10th. And the fact that his Q2 time would have been enough to put him on pole.
Yeah.
So, I mean, George wasn't good enough to beat you in your Q2 time, but
It would just be frustrating.
yeah. And he actually, I'm looking at it now, and he actually beat George's Q1 time by almost 200ths of a second, 2/10 of a second. Sorry.
Jeez.
So he would have beat him by quite a margin. But I mean, doesn't matter
Yeah.
if he did in Q2.
Hindsight. Yeah. Hindsight is 2020.
Yeah,
But yeah, and I mean, it was so then you have George on pole, Carlos behind him, and then
Gasly,
Gasly in third.
then
So
Leclerc,
yeah.
and then you have Max and Lando starting next to each other.
Which we were all worried about.
Well, I thought, Max has the opportunity
To do
to
something great.
do something great, just like all the legends I talked about last week did.
Yeah.
And that's in the third last. It would have been more poetic if it was the second last, but in the third last race, just turn into Lando at turn 1 and wins the championship because they're both
Yeah.
out.
Just take
That's
him
all
out.
he's got to do. That's all you got to do.
All you gotta do.
And
Or
then he could have
just
just,
turn in enough that Lando's out and you can still drive. Even if you drive for a little bit.
even if Max DNF'd, it didn't matter. Yeah, he's out.
Yeah.
He's out. He wins.
It's
Lando
done.
can't beat him by 3 points. I
It's
thought
done.
like it would have been bad,
Yeah.
but I would have laughed.
It
It would
would
have
have
been
been very big.
it would have been a good laugh.
They can't nowadays they can't get away with that stuff
No,
the way
no
they used to be
data,
able
telemetry,
to.
and stuff now.
Yeah.
The way everything's tracked, there's no
Yeah.
way. Yeah,
Christian
no.
Horner would come out with his
It was
tablet
like,
again
look, he was
showing.
here. He was doing
Yeah.
everything he should have done.
Yeah.
Lando turned into him. He was
Yeah.
breaking late.
Yeah, can't get away with it now. But yeah, so then we jump into the race again last night, this morning, however you want to talk about it, 1 a.m. Eastern.
This morning, yeah.
And we have again George on pole, George,
Carlos,
Carlos, Pierre, Charles, Max, Lando. We don't even
yeah.
have to worry about anybody else.
And
Uh,
Colapinto is clear to race. His car
he
is
clear to
ready.
race. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's that all works out.
Yeah, in the end, it does
Uh,
work out. And they do their formation lap, and they get back around to start, and George has probably the best start I think he's probably ever had.
yeah,
And Charles had an incredible start
I don't know.
from fourth
It's a
and just
second.
jumped right into
Yeah,
second.
he had a double overtaken corner number 1 on the inside,
Yeah.
and just I think but I think Lando was so concerned. Not Lando, Gasly was so concerned about Carlos coming up behind him.
Yeah.
Or sorry, my mistake. It was the other way around. Sainz was so concerned about Gasly coming up behind him that he wasn't even thinking about Charles coming around the inside.
He's like, and it was almost three wide.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of makes it through that turn, but George just gets the upper hand, and he's just gone.
Well, he's the benefit of everybody else fighting, right? So he's
Yeah. Max and Lando somehow keep it clean. They actually don't even get that close at all. They kind of go the opposite
No,
way.
they gave themselves. Yeah, they gave each other a lot of respect.
Yeah.
There, which obviously Lando's going to, but Max was also very fair about it. I think he didn't want to be crucified in the media again. Just kind of wanted to win on merit.
Yeah, and I don't. We never really see them in the race. I can't really remember them
There
fighting too
was
much.
the only thing. No, we didn't. There was no real come together.
No.
I mean, in the beginning, there is a bit of Max, or sorry, Lando chasing Max,
Yeah.
wondering, and that happens in the first couple of laps
Yeah.
when their tires are fresh, and then everybody just kind of backs off because they don't want to destroy their tires.
Yeah.
Let the race come to them, and then they'll try and figure it out later. But even with pit stop strategies, there really is nothing.
No.
There's no real uh, threat
Yeah.
throughout the rest of the race.
When it came to their strategies, they were on they were on different strategies, obviously, because they're trying to fight each other, but it never really seemed to work for either of them. I mean, it worked, I guess
No,
you would say better for Max, but um their deltas were off. Their overcut and undercuts weren't even for each other. They were for other positions.
yeah,
So, like Max's at one point, I think his undercut was for George,
yes,
and then
because
he ended up overcutting everybody else, which was worked out really well for Max. But then,
yeah,
I mean, his tires got cooked by the end of it, of all of that.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
um, so at one point, it was kind of like we didn't think he was going to catch George, but we thought, okay, he might end in
He'll end in a
second.
podium. Yeah,
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 and then that went away real quickly. But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, but yeah, I think lots of close calls with the midfield, which they kept showing us what was going on in the midfield
And
and
you were not
towards the
happy.
back. And I was like, okay, we don't care. Like, just show us the beginning. And it was really because we're seeing orders change. We're seeing names change. We're seeing Leclerc now in third. When we just left them, they weren't even close enough to be fighting.
Yeah,
And then all of a
we
sudden
didn't
we're
even notice.
watching, yeah, we're just
You and
like,
I didn't even notice. Bianca noticed it.
yeah.
She says signs in second. Like when?
We're like,
When did this
What
happen?
what are you watching?" And because we have Liam Lawson fighting Perez in like 15th
Yeah,
and
they're looking for
16th.
drama. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, at the time, I guess the camera crew and the producers didn't realize that there was a lot of drama to show with those
The
Ferraris,
Ferraris specifically, yeah.
specifically the Ferraris, which
Well, before we
is a
even know
mess.
about any of that, I mean, we see Lewis just charging through the pack. I mean,
Yeah.
it's probably through just after, I guess, after his first tire change, which came a lot earlier than everybody expected.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a 50 lap race. I'm thinking the mediums are going to go for 20 ish, 18 to 20 ish laps.
Yeah.
They're changing the mediums at lap 10.
Yeah.
Alonso started on a soft,
Soft.
was the only one on a soft,
Yeah.
and changed at lap 5. I'm like, what is going
What was
on?
the point of this?
Yeah, and so everybody's changing at lap 10. It's suddenly become a two-stop race for some
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I think for everybody, didn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody stopped twice, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I know at one point they did say that not Alonso, Aston Martin was banking on a very early safety car. So they were
yeah,
thinking what you and I were thinking, what a lot of people were thinking is that there was going to be a coming together, either
or
George,
or an
Lando,
off-track event or something like that.
yeah,
Somebody's gonna go. He's gonna lose
right
it. Yeah,
right in lap 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. So
yeah,
Aston Martin was hoping for a very early, a quick start, get some, pace, move up through the pack a little bit, and then get that easy safety car.
yeah.
And then he'd be good until the end. Obviously, that didn't happen. So
No,
within 5 laps, his tires are just done.
yeah. No, this became a quick two stop race. Actually, the three stop for Ocon and
Yeah, some
because
people had
Ocon just went through
goes.
the pit lane, so it counts as a pit stop.
Yeah,
And Lando stopped for fastest lap. But before the race, we have Martin Brundle going his grid walk, which we got to talk about a little bit later.
oh
I
yeah,
got a couple of things in there that made me
yeah,
laugh. But he actually talks to whoever it is at Pirelli, their representative or one of the bosses or whatever, asking, do we think it's going to be a one-stop race? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. These hards can go forever. Very minimal graining. There's guaranteed it's a one-stop race. And then everybody starts pitting at lap 10. I'm
yeah,
thinking, like, you just made yourself look like the biggest idiot. You have
yeah,
no idea what your product does.
yeah,
There's a reason
and
why nobody likes your tires.
yeah, well, and like it just it must be pretty frustrating because I think everybody was thinking it was going to be a one stop, and then they get out there.
Well,
There's
because
sand all over the track.
yeah,
There's like the temperatures are cold,
yeah,
cold. um, it's just, and the tires are just getting and like
and
um
with a couple of people, you can see it. Like you can see
yeah,
it with like okay, Lewis. Yeah, I can see it. He's fighting hard.
yeah,
Max and Lando, sure.
yeah,
Charles and Sainz, absolutely.
yeah,
They're the ones that are pushing their tires probably the most.
yeah,
But everybody was on a two stopper,
yeah. Well, and like you did see Charles in the beginning really
really trying to
racing.
catch
Yeah, he
George.
was
He
catching
was on
George
him,
like
Mil-
insanely, like
millimeters.
pushing him along.
Yeah,
And usually, you've heard us say it. You can, when you're watching, you hear them say, okay, you're going to ruin your tires, but they don't really mean in that moment. But as soon as you started seeing George go away, we realized, oh no, his Charles' tires are done,
yeah.
and they
He
were done.
he chases George for I would say good 3-4 laps.
Yeah,
And then once he hits lap 7 or 8,
yeah.
he can't. He's got no tire. Like he literally has nothing left.
No, he
He
can't
gets
even
down to a
defend.
straight. No, he can't defend. He's just letting everybody pass. Sainz
Yeah,
passes. Gasly passes.
yeah,
Max, I think at one point passes him.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. And then they bring
Um,
him in.
they bring him in. I mean, Lando would have caught him as well, but Lando
Yeah,
comes into pit at the same time as George. He
yeah,
comes right behind him.
yeah.
And not as George. Sorry, as
As
Charles.
Charles. Yeah,
Otherwise, he would have had him too. He was there at the
yeah.
pit entrance. He was right on his ass.
Yeah, it was crazy to see how the tires were it was like they were made of sand, like they were just falling apart.
Yeah.
Um, and for a track that isn't overheating, it was not hot at all
No.
for uh the deg that was happening on the tires. But um, so again, lots of close, very close people touching people, getting
Lightly.
close to the walls.
Yeah.
Like it's everybody was using every bit of the track. And I think, like you said, there was no racing line. So they're just trying to make up
Yeah.
whatever they can to make a little bit of anything.
Yeah.
And then at one point we have Perez, Lawson,
Lawson and Magnussen.
and
So we have
Magnussen.
we have Lawson in front at the front of the train,
Yeah.
Magnussen right behind him, and Perez behind him, and they
Yeah.
are all less than a car's width or length, sorry, apart
Yeah.
from each other,
And then
going down the main
somehow
straight.
they all come side by side on the chicane. Like, how
Well,
are
yeah, so
you guys?
they're going down that main straight, and I think Perez is just waiting for Magnussen to make a move to see which
Yeah,
way he goes because he already knows he's going either that or he just decided he was going on the inside,
yeah,
and got lucky that Magnussen didn't also do the same.
yeah,
So Magnussen goes to the outside at almost at the exact same time. Magnussen
yeah,
goes outside, Perez goes on the inside, breaks probably later than
yeah,
he normally would, but under control.
yeah.
And they go 3 wide into the chicane and then into another barrier.
Yeah. It's just insane that they didn't. The three of them just didn't collide and create a disaster on track, really. But
And that
um,
shows El Jefe there because he knows that with that chicane coming up, the only place he makes that move stick is on the inside. Because
yeah,
now forces Lawson to the outside, which means he's got to, as long as he can stay ahead of him at the apex,
yeah,
he's got that and he's going to have to back off.
yeah.
There's no way that Magnus is making that chicane
No,
too wide there. And
no.
he's probably braking as hard as he can. Otherwise, it's headfirst into that concrete block.
Yeah,
And Perez goes in cleanly.
yeah, and he's in the spot that he can. I mean, Jensen kind of talked about it in Monaco. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So
Yeah.
yes, they have to follow the track, but being on the inside, Perez is the one that's able to go straight. Really,
Yeah, you're gonna be able to go as straight as possible
as
there
straight as
without having it.
possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going
As long as all
to.
4 wheels are on the track.
Yeah, you're not going to break as hard as the other two are going to have to, or
Yeah,
they're going to go into a wall. So
and we saw that kind of in was it in Coda or is it in Mexico? I can't remember. There's one part of the track where they go over it. Same thing. It's a chicane, and it
Mhm.
looks like all four wheels are off that track, but they're
Yeah.
just cutting that corner so much because and their wheel length just keeps
Yeah.
them on track.
Yeah. You're yeah. If you're
What
doing it properly,
what's
one
by regulations called on track? That's
yeah,
fine.
one wheel is there. That's all that matters. And we just kind of George has taken off. He
George takes it. Yeah,
gets to a point that I think he's about 6 seconds ahead, and then he starts to build on that. But what starts happening is people that are in second and third start pitting, which then extends George's lead because of
yeah,
the person in fourth is now 20 seconds behind him because they were only 5 seconds behind the people in second and third.
yeah.
So time delta there, but um, to the point that at one point George is ahead by 32
Yeah.
seconds.
He essentially gets a free pit stop.
It was,
Yeah.
and the pit stop was what, 21 seconds or
Average was about
so?
21 seconds. Yeah, average thing. And so we didn't see anything really slow that they put. Everybody's putting up 2 to 2.4 second pit
Yeah.
stops.
Yeah, everybody was on it except for
Oh yes.
Alpine
Yeah. Well, no, and the Ferraris.
and the Ferraris. Yeah,
Yeah.
but Alpine I think is a little
Alpine was the
worse.
first one. We didn't know what happened at the
No,
time. We
no,
just hear that that Ocon comes in. We didn't hear the call. We didn't hear
no.
anything. He just comes in and he drives straight through the pit lane,
Yeah.
which is considered a pit stop. He goes to the pit
Hmm.
lane. He's got to be at pit lane speed, whatever. And we find out later today, that even though you call for a pit stop, you hit the pit confirm button. There's this communication between each other, or supposed to be. We only have one mechanic, the guy who basically pulls like the hose
Yeah.
or whatever it is. There's one mechanic
Nobody
there. There's nobody else. All
nobody
other
with tires.
14, I think it is,
Yeah.
are not there.
Yeah.
And so he's forced to go around. Now he's lost 21 seconds,
Yeah.
which puts him wherever it's going to put him
Yeah.
at that point, because he no, he did. No, yes, we'll talk. It was the other Alpine,
Yeah.
um, but basically, just effectively ruins his race, puts him
Yeah.
down near the bottom because it wasn't. It was still a pretty close race everywhere else.
Yeah. Just awful. And then we have Carlos Sainz begging to, let's
Change of tires.
to change his tires. So he's begging to change his tires. Team saying no. He's like, no, 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 we got to do it. We got to do it. We got to do it. And they finally say, okay, yes, come in.
Yeah,
He is in
he's behind Lewis coming
is
in,
he
I
behind
believe,
Lewis or is he ahead of? He's in front of Lewis.
and he's in front of Lewis because
Yeah,
it looked like Lewis was going into the wall.
yeah.
Just a visual
How it happened. Yeah,
fuckery.
yeah. The optical illusion that was like, what's going
Yeah,
on? So he's in front of Lewis. Lewis is also going into the pits, and at the very last second, Ferrari says, "No, stay out." I'm
yeah.
assuming because one of two things: either they weren't ready, like Alpine, or they really were trying to do the dummy on Lewis and didn't tell Carlos that was the plan.
I don't think it was well, unless they're not really watching where he is on track,
Yeah.
because he is in the pit entrance. Like he's already in the lane there,
Yeah.
over the white line,
Yeah.
in the lane.
Solid
And
white
then
line.
when he stays out and he cuts back over that white line, which should be a penalty. We've seen people get a penalty for that before.
Yep.
Um, and I want to see like an overhead replay of it, but he comes from what it looks like to like the camera angles we saw, dangerously close to the barriers.
Yeah.
Like it's probably a meter away.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but a meter away at that speed is
Yeah.
cutting it real close.
Yeah. Because I mean, he's still going 100 miles an hour. Like
Yeah,
they have
yeah.
to slow down, but
I think he just missed the slowdown part there.
yeah, it's just going. So Lewis is immediately on the radio. This is a penalty. Commentators are like,
We said it was a
this
penalty.
is a
Like there's,
penalty.
yeah. Like we were talking about it as in like even if you're not ready, your driver is in the pit entrance now. He's
Mhm.
got to cross the white line. He's going to get a penalty, whether it's five
Yeah.
seconds or 10 seconds or whatever it is. Even if you're not ready, you can scramble enough that you're going to make up that 5 seconds
Yeah. Just
or be
just
at
take
that
it.
5 seconds. Just take it.
Yeah.
You fucked up.
Yeah. It it couldn't have been any worse. I don't know how they got lucky with not getting a penalty,
Yeah, and we
which
see
they don't.
nothing else. We
Yeah.
see nothing. Nothing else came of it.
Yeah.
Unless somebody's going to have some kind of complaint to the FIA to review it, and he takes a
Mhm.
penalty in the next couple races or whatever,
Yeah.
or a financial penalty. Who knows? But there was nothing. There wasn't even an
No.
investigation.
No. No, we never
Nothing.
saw it was gone to the stewards. It was whatever, and I remember the commentator saying, like, "We haven't seen it go to the FIA. We
Yeah.
haven't seen the stewards reviewing it or anything." So, um, I there must be some rule at Vegas with that white line. I don't know, but
Is it, or is he is he getting favoritism? Because isn't the new race director? Oh no, is he Brazilian? Rui Marques. I thought it was Spanish. No, it's not
mhm.
Marquez. I think it's, yeah, he might be Brazilian.
Oh,
I thought there was gonna be some favoritism there. I
uh,
just looked it up.
no. Um, yeah, no, I don't think so. Um, and then what else is going on in the race?
um, what goes on in the race? We don't
At
really
the
have.
end?
We see this during the second, I guess, pit stints. Max is the first one to come in, so
Yeah.
Max is just asking for his tires. They're kind of. It kind of seems that Max is kind of the domino effect at
Yeah.
that point. So Max comes in and he needs a good pit stop,
Mhm.
and we see him because at that point he was up there third or fourth. I can't remember
Mhm.
exactly what it was, and it would have dropped him in somewhere. Probably I think it was like eighth at that point or something
Yeah.
like that. But it's eighth is Ferrari, some other car,
Yeah.
Lando.
Yeah.
And they put up a 2.0, I believe it
Yeah.
was, pit
2.0.
stop,
And
and
we were like,
puts
"No, it's 2.3, 2.4," and
yeah,
it's
yeah, it was
2.
2.0, and he needed that 2.0 because that 2.0 helps him split the Ferraris.
Yeah.
Split the Ferraris, or he split the Ferraris, I believe, or he's in the front of them,
He's in front of them, and
front of both of
then
them. Yeah,
yeah,
and
because
but
of,
then
again, when they need to pit.
yeah, the other
Um,
four are right behind him, are very, very close.
yeah.
So if he had been a 2.3, 2.4, he probably would have come out behind Lando,
Yeah. Lamo.
and we would have had quite a bit more fireworks probably.
Yeah. And it was interesting because at no, and we kind of talked about it, but at no point were they always had people between them until the very end. And
Yeah.
even when at the very end, they were still apart by, I think, 7 seconds. So there was no coming together.
It was
And
7 seconds until he pitted, and then it
yeah,
was like
it
23.
was, yeah. And then there was, the graphic kept coming up like, okay, when Max was in third, this is where they would still make him the champion. If he was in sixth and Lando was in seventh, it would,
Yeah, yeah.
this is, he would, regardless, as long as Lando's behind him, he's going to become champion.
Oh, unless they're
Um,
finishing like ninth and 10th,
Ninth
then
and 10th, yeah, then it wouldn't happen. But and so we're kind of getting towards the end of the race. Max is in third. And Lewis is like Lewis has actually climbed up. He's
yeah,
already in second at this point, and he's kind of taken off. And we see Max's tires, his deg is now at the end.
yeah,
He gets on the radio and he's asking GP, where's Lando? Because at this point, he's just concerned with finishing ahead of him and, making sure he's got enough points.
yeah.
And GP's like, you know what we need to do here? Like, let's just keep it.
Just yeah. Basically,
Uh,
don't try and catch Hamilton. There's no
yeah.
point.
And he's got the Ferraris behind him who are both in DRS of each
Yeah.
other.
And
So
he responds with like, "Yeah, I know the race. Don't worry."
I know what
Like
I got
very
to do.
calm, just like.
Yeah. I know what I got to do. And sure enough, those Ferraris get right up onto the back of his gearbox and he lets, I think it's Leclerc first, lets Leclerc through.
Was it?
No,
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 it
it
was
would be
Carlos at that
Science.
point.
Yeah,
Carlos
it'd
was
be
still out there.
Carlos.
Yeah, yeah, because we
Uh,
have the pit stop drama before that.
yeah, and then so he has Carlos go through, and then a lap later,
Later, yeah.
he just lets Leclerc go through
Yeah,
as
there
well.
was. I think after he lets Carlos through on that one, which he let him through pretty easily.
Yeah,
They come closer to like another corner, just halfway down the lap, and he fights him a little bit.
yeah,
I think he just wanted to
just for
race, just have
fun.
some fun. But it
Yeah,
was all very. It wasn't even close.
yeah,
And then the next
he
lap
just
later,
he just
he
moves
just lets
over.
him pass on the straight. He wasn't even going to
Yeah,
bother. There
it
wasn't even a move to defend.
and it didn't make sense. Why possibly get close to Charles? Why cause damage
As
when
long as it's not Lando, it doesn't matter.
you're about to win? You're about to
Yeah.
win the championship. And so we have the Ferrari drama, which we've kind of talked about, we've you know previewed
Alluded
it a
to.
little
Yeah.
bit. And Ferrari makes the call to say to
Well, at
Carlos.
first, oh yeah, sorry. I thought you were going to say something else. Yeah.
Yeah, so he makes the call. They make the call to Carlos. Basically, this is Leclerc's race,
Yeah.
is what we could surmise or paraphrase.
Well,
um,
yeah.
so you're gonna, move over, like, don't fight him too much, keep it clean, but kind of let Leclerc through when the time is right. And they were always, and it wasn't like a McLaren way, because Leclerc is right there. It's not like he's way back and you're having to slow down to get someone to pass you. He is there.
Yeah.
And they, go over to Charles and say, "Yeah, we've told Carlos to let you through.
Not fight you.
We're not.
Yeah.
There's not going to be any fighting. You're just going to kind of go on by." And Carlos ignores all rules.
Everything. Yeah.
It just says, "Fuck it." And he decides to defend, and he decides to fight, and he decides to overtake when he was told not to overtake. And which leads to a really funny radio of, Charles' engineer saying, "We
We've
told him to
asked
do
him.
this. We've asked him
Yeah.
to do this." And Leclerc responds and says, or he didn't do it. He says he didn't. We asked him, but he didn't do it. And Leclerc responds and says, "Maybe try it in Spanish,"
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
like hilarious. And then it just kind of goes downhill from there. Leclerc
Well,
cooks
yeah,
his tires. Like,
and Carlos just goes on to race his race and try and get a podium, which he does. He gets third place.
he does.
Which I don't understand from a racing standpoint, from a sportsmanship standpoint. I don't understand Ferrari's position to let Leclerc through. It's of no consequence. You're not catching George. You're not getting first.
No,
You're not catching Lewis. He wasn't the faster driver,
no,
obviously. Um, it doesn't mean anything for you in a driver's championship because you've already been eliminated from driver's championship.
yeah,
As long as it doesn't matter who's finishing first or third and fourth, whoever it is, you're still getting the same amount of points when it comes to the champion or for the constructors championship.
yeah,
It is a useless, absolutely asinine ask to
yeah,
ask Carlos this. The only thing that matters is he's your driver for next year. He's the one who you want to put on a podium to
yeah,
show the world this is
yeah,
Ferrari and we made the right choice.
yeah,
You don't want to look like a bunch of fools with people saying, see, they chose the wrong driver.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't make sense to make that call again. The fight was between Lando and Max. So
Charles
points are
been eliminated from
points.
contention a long time ago.
Yeah, he wasn't accepting it, but he's been eliminated for a while. And for these people that are out, they are racing for themselves. They're racing for the teams, especially the ones that don't have a seat or are in a different car, like Carlos next year. He's not necessarily going to have many podiums next year, we
No.
think.
He has everything to lose here. He needs to show other teams. You put me in a car and
Yeah.
I can still outrace half
Everybody.
the grid.
Yeah.
Whatever. You know what I mean? I can perform.
Yeah, he's possibly still in contention potentially for, we know he's going to Williams. but it's possible that he could be going to Red Bull or Audi in 2026. So he still needs to perform.
Yeah.
Leclerc is
It
stuck
could happen
in
in
a Ferrari.
2025. His
Yeah,
contract for Williams has an out if a top team
yeah,
wants to take him up.
yeah. So I mean, he has to do what he's got to do, and he did what he had to do. But
Well,
then
yeah,
we hear,
he can't sit back and be like he's not in Charles' position. He can't just
no,
sit back and be handed positions.
no,
It's not coming to him. He's got to take
no.
it, and he's the one who's absolutely right in this position.
Yeah, I would say so too. And when the race is done, and I mean, we can kind of jump into that. So George wins.
Yeah,
George
Georgia
wins Las
wins
Vegas Grand Prix.
Max's
Lewis,
drivers' championship,
yeah, Max gets the drivers' championship. Lewis gets second place from 10th, which he had an awesome drive. If there were 5 more laps, Lewis would have won the Las Vegas Grand
which
Prix. I think even if there was like 2 more laps, he would have won.
which I
um,
didn't check. I'll check it right now, but I didn't check. Did he get driver of the day?
yes, he did.
Okay,
He did
I was
get
gonna say
driver
he
of the
should
day.
have because
He definitely.
I didn't even notice it. I just
Yeah,
yeah.
I think with a few laps while it was still open, he had like 44% of
Okay,
the, like,
okay,
it
good.
just made sense.
Yeah,
Max was on there, which Max is never on driver of the day.
he's been on there a lot more. He's
Yes,
been on there a lot more
he
since he
got it in
hasn't been in
Brazil
first. Yeah,
too,
it
but
was.
um so like Lewis had a fantastic drive.
Yeah,
And I mean, the Mercedes did really well. And then Carlos in third. Um and then we're hearing the radios, the cool down laps, and Leclerc absolutely losing
going
it.
off, just
Losing
going off
it. Um
in the
there
most,
in the most
uh,
Leclerc way.
yeah, I guess just a meltdown on the
Yeah,
radio.
like absolute. Do
So
you have
much
it
that
there?
yeah, I do, and Vasseur has to intervene and be like, listen, just shut up.
Yeah,
He just says, "Yeah, I did my job of being nice." Fucks me all over all the fucking time, all the
yeah,
fucking time. It's not even being nice. It's just being respectful. I know I need to shut up, but at one point, it's always the same. So, and then he says, "Stop, stop." Or Visser comes on and says, "Charles, Charles," and he says, "Yeah, it's just fucked up, basically."
yeah,
Um, which
yeah,
that's where we're going to get into more of the penalties section of
yeah,
it. I mean, he's pissed off.
yeah. He's
I don't
pissed.
know why he's I guess he was just expecting it. I don't know why he's surprised. Unless at some point before the race they had decided on this and Carlos is like, "Yeah, no problem. I'll do it," just to get everybody to shut up. And then didn't. I could see that if there was this agreement between them.
Yeah, the
Um
gentleman's agreement.
I guess, yeah. But I mean, they told Carlos about it in his media scrum or whatever. He says, "You know what? I don't like to put things on the radio. I like to talk to somebody in private because otherwise, you guys take things out of context and you guys don't understand what was said beforehand.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we don't know what was talked about." Um, so when we talked about like these swearing penalties, Max gets community service, which is supposed to be like it was the first one. They just wanted to make an example of him. They weren't
yeah,
expecting anybody else to swear. They were expecting
no,
everybody else to fall in line. Charles swears, gets a $10,000 fine with 5,000 suspended. Should he do it again?
hmm,
Nobody else gets it in Brazil. Charles obviously, or it's expected that he's going to have to pay the other 5,000.
yes.
But this is quite the egregious.
Yeah, this isn't just like a slip up. Like even the one that he got for like the penalty that he got for swearing was kind of like just talking
Ridiculous.
in jest. Like he was just talking where Max's was a
It
bit
just
more
slipped out.
aggressive. Yeah, like Charles is just
Max's was directed at the FAA, like "fuck you,"
yeah,
basically.
yeah, and but Max's was one word. So was Charles. Charles this week goes on a rant.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I think he's this I mean, I love Charles and I don't agree with the penalty at all, but
yeah. I was gonna say, let's
in
state
all
that there. Like, we think it's an
fairness,
absolutely, completely fucking ridiculous penalty.
yes.
Like, it's stupid.
But in all fairness, we have to be fair now.
This is
So
worse.
what's the
What does this
plan?
look like?
Yeah,
Is this going to be another finan and it's, shame on the FIA for creating this regulation out of nowhere, pulling it out of their ass,
yeah,
not really fully fledging this out. You don't have a penalty structure, right?
yeah,
You go to any company that their HR, usually have like a verbal warning, a written and
yeah,
a whatever, some kind of more harsh or whatever.
yeah.
Just as an example, they have not set out anything, whether it's you're subject to fines, whether you're subject to community service. They just kind of pull the shit out of anywhere and
Making it
create
up.
these penalties up as they go along.
Yeah,
The, I don't know what Charles' offense is going to be. I
no.
could see it being another the five that he's got and another 10 on top of it, like a full 10.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, like the FIA has to take control of the situation,
Yeah,
create something that can be respected, or abolish it completely.
yeah,
Just get rid of it. These
yeah,
guys, we saw Franco. Would they have fined Franco Colapinto if he swore after his crash?
yeah.
When this guy puts his life on the line for you at 200 miles an hour?
They not that they should, but in a part of their rules, they would have to. So why can we're picking and choosing when people can swear and how they can swear and what they're allowed to say. This It's just not going to work.
No.
Um, so I it'll be interesting to see what happens based on Charles' rant of the F word, basically. I mean, I think this is multiple penalties.
It has to be.
It's going to be the community service plus the 10,000 plus like
Which is
whatever else.
just salt in the wound. Like, one, you're pissed off already for another reason.
Yeah.
You've got an issue with your teammate who you've got another two races to ride
Yeah.
out, especially because after Abu Dhabi, Carlos gets released completely.
Yeah.
And then now you're going to have a fine put on top of you because you have to act like you're a 5-year-old, a
Mhm.
6-year-old, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
whatever Max wants to call you,
Yeah.
and try to not swear in front of your parents. It's
Yeah.
absolutely horseshit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what comes, and I'm assuming it's going to be the next couple of days that we're going to find out what happens. And I think if
Oh, I
we
think it
don't
has to
find
be.
out what
I think it has
happens,
to be.
Max is going to lose his mind in
They
Qatar.
they cannot handle Charles like they did the other time, which
No.
was a full week.
Yeah.
He swore. The FIA went to go talk to him after the press conference.
Mhm.
We all saw that.
Yeah.
Nothing came of it. There was no announcement until Max brings it up at the press conference on the
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like, what?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Fun times. Fun
it's
times.
just like it's just it feels like their regulatory body is just in shambles. And it
It
is. I
really
mean, you
it
have
is.
people leaving, them firing people,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's just it's
Yeah.
it's frustrating.
Well, and I mean, on a positive, we can kind of go to a positive. Max won the drivers championship,
Yes.
which is his fourth in a
His fourth
row.
and fourth straight, yeah. So the only
Um
ones to do four straight, at least four straight, are Fangio, Vettel, Schumacher, Hamilton, and I'm missing one, right? No, I think that's the only ones that have done four straight. Yeah.
yeah, Hamilton had four.
The
Yeah.
only other ones that have won four and only four are Vettel and Prost.
Yeah. So, he's joining, you know, breaking other records.
Yeah.
And then he's got another record of like first to
Fewest days between your first and fourth title win, which was previously held by Sebastian Vettel because he won four in a row.
yeah,
1,079 days between his first championship win and his fourth championship win. Max wins that at 1,078 days because Vegas was held on a Saturday. If it had been held on a Sunday, it would tie that record. Now he's just gotten another record because of a
yes.
scheduling
Yeah.
issue.
I wouldn't say it's not even a conflict, but
No, it's just a
yeah.
scheduling issue. That's it.
Yeah. So, which is good for him. I mean, even Lando acknowledged earlier
Yeah.
this weekend that he acknowledged this morning,
Well,
whenever,
a
that
bit of a step back from everything he said over the last several weeks is like
yeah,
Max makes no mistakes, and you can't beat somebody who makes no mistakes.
yeah.
3 weeks ago you said he only won on luck.
You also said that he turned into you,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
is
yeah,
that a mistake
yeah.
or
I
but
know. Yeah,
I mean, I
yeah.
think he also got a lot of flack for, how he was acting. So I think
Oh yeah,
he's realized. And I mean, even he said after the race, like Max deserved to win.
of
Um,
course.
and it wasn't the best of seasons for Max, but it was a season, and he
No, but we saw. I mean, the stat came out last week. He hasn't finished outside of the points since 2018 when he
yeah,
does finish a race.
yeah,
I mean, that's a level of consistency that I don't think you see. I mean, Lewis hasn't done that
yeah,
in since 2018.
yeah,
It's a level of consistency you don't see from anybody.
yeah.
Um, and he dominated that first half of the season. This first
Hmm.
half of the season to the break. The second half of the season didn't go as well. Other teams
Yeah.
caught up, but he drove consistently well. I don't think he had a. Did he have a finish outside of the top six? Maybe. Well, I don't believe so.
You don't remember.
Not that I can remember, but I don't believe he has. Um, I mean, there's something to be said for just consistently. Yes, he hasn't had the greatest of back halves of the season, but
Yeah.
he's had a consistently good one,
Yeah.
which has
Yeah.
allowed him to still win the championship 3 races out of the end of the season.
Yeah. And I mean, uh, you know, everybody's like, well, the race is done now. It's won. It's not. Sometimes
No,
actually having the drivers' championship over actually helps there be better racing. I mean, we've
yeah,
had some good racing,
we
but
have.
pressure's off. We know who won. Now we're driving for the team. Now we're
Yeah,
driving for just glory at this point.
yeah.
Um,
We have McLaren now at 608 points. Ferrari's only at 584. They're only
mhm.
24 points behind.
Yeah.
Red Bull's only, what is this, 53 points behind McLaren,
Yeah.
which is still technically doable.
Yeah.
Um, I'm really interested to see. I mean, Mercedes is kind of on an island above them on their own at 425. They're not catching any team, and no team's catching them because
Yeah.
Aston Martin's behind them at 86. But Haas has got 50 points. Alpine's got 49.
Yeah.
RB's got 46. There's a
Yeah.
lot of point, a lot of money to be had in those
Yeah.
last in between. I would even say five, because
Yeah.
if Haskin has a couple of good weekends and Aston has terrible weekends like they have had,
Yeah.
um,
This whole thing can
it's
flip.
possible to get 36 points. That'd have to be two phenomenal races for Haas,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's possible. But that
Yeah.
6 to 8 with only a 4 point difference, it's millions and millions of dollars in that four
Yeah.
point difference.
Yeah. And I mean, we only have two more race weekends, but we still have three races. So there's still a sprint.
The sprint, yeah, so like 3 races.
We still
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a sprint next weekend.
Two
So
weekends, 3 races. Yeah, yeah. Another
um it
up to 8 points.
we there's points on the table.
Yeah,
Just not for Lando, unfortunately. Not enough for Lando.
not enough. Yeah,
But
you can still help McLaren.
yeah, you can still help McLaren out. Um So yeah, we started going into some news. I don't think we have much
I don't think
more
we have
news.
much, so I don't think we have to really go into anything else. We'll see what happens with Charlotte and everything. One thing I saw come out, there is a qualifying format coming out for. I wanted to get your opinion on this for FIA. Sorry, for Formula E.
Okay.
Now, obviously, this is not a proposed change for
Formula One.
F1, but the idea of qualifying has always been, was it qualifying or was it sprint? Either way, they've played around with different ideas, or speculations of playing around with different ideas. So the way they have it work now is they've got 22 drivers on the grid. They basically have a group A and a group B. So two groups of 11 drivers, they battle at 300 kilowatts. I guess they changed the different wattages for it. I don't know why you would do that. I guess that's just to make it more even, between all 22 teams.
Okay.
Either way, group A is like all the odds, first to third, fifth, seventh, ninth, whatever. I don't know if they pick them out of the hat or if it's just in the driver's standing. I would assume it's the driver's standing where they start that group A, and then group B is all the even number standings,
Okay.
and they battle it out in a qualifying. Top four from each one of those goes on to a quarterfinal, essentially. So then we have on track duels. So I don't know if they go at the same time or it's just time based. Doesn't really say. Um, in all wheel drive quarterfinal. Yeah. Anyways, it doesn't say if it's time based or if it's just on track. But you have a quarterfinal one between like fifth and third, and then seventh and first from Group A. Quarterfinal between
Okay.
eighth and second, and sixth and fourth from Group B. So like
This is like all
just
over the place.
well, like so the top four
Yeah.
that make it, you have the two middle ones, and then
Yeah.
the first
It's
and
like a
last one or
bracket.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, a
yeah,
bracket essentially. Yeah,
yeah.
they do that, and then they go on to a semifinal. So winner of Q qualify quarterfinal one and quarterfinal two and quarterfinal three and quarterfinal four. Then you have a final, and that'll set up your winner, runner up, semifinalists, their first four pole positions, and everything else back there. But I guess what they're trying to get at is just more excitement. So you have these head to head battles. It would be more interesting if it's like on track duels, one on one,
Yeah.
or if it's time based, because then you kind of take away what you have now. You take away like drafting from somebody, or like picking up slipstreams. You know what I mean? Like all those little
Yeah.
things that help you get that extra tenth of a second. You're just purely on speed of a driver, speed of a car, and your merit.
I mean, it would be interesting,
I
but then,
don't know. I don't know if I necessarily like the bracket idea. I think it's too
yeah,
convoluted.
I think it also, I don't know. And like you said, this is not something that they're saying that they're going to bring to Formula
No, no,
One
no, no.
or Formula
This is
Two,
the
even.
this is
But
just the new one for Formula E, and then I just wanted to get your opinions on
yeah, I'm just
would
thinking it could even, I don't think that could even work in Formula One because of how fast the cars go.
is
Like,
there too much difference in the cars, you think,
yeah, I think
between
a
Formula
Formula
E,
E, they'd probably
where
have to
they're
like test drive, like test it in like F3.
yeah, I think where this makes it more sense is where you get like because they're restricting power outputs, so you're going at 300 kilowatts and then
Yeah,
350 kilowatts for the duels, so you're obviously faster.
yeah.
Um, uh, you can't do that in a Formula One car. You
No,
can't restrict power in them.
the
I mean, I'm assuming maybe you could, but it would go against the spirit of the sport, I guess.
well, like, do you think Max? They're like, Max, you can't go over 250. You think he's gonna be like, okay, I
Yeah,
won't go
yeah,
over 250?
yeah.
Like, like,
Yeah.
oh,
I don't.
251. Sorry. Like,
It popped up today. I thought it was interesting.
I mean, how long does this take?
Yeah,
And this
that's
is
the
just
other
their
thing.
qualifying, right?
This is just their qualifying. This has got to be like a 2 hour qualifying.
Yeah, no, couldn't do it.
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'll have to like watch it and see like exactly how it all works. So this is what
How
they're
else? Yeah.
they're doing
This
this
is
for 2025.
for. Doesn't say 20. It just says qualifying format explained. So I'm assuming this is for
Hmm.
2025.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I will tune into one just to see how
I
it
think we're
all
gonna have to. Yeah.
works. Yeah, but it sounds very convoluted and it
Yeah.
sounds
It sounds a little like they're just throwing darts, seeing what sticks and what happens.
but I mean to the point of, people have said for Formula 1 sprints, maybe we should start with the back of the pack,
Reverse grid.
reverse grid. Is this kind of a variation of doing reverse grid?
No, I don't think the reverse grid where like you're gonna put your car as fast as you can just so you can start last.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, I'm gonna do a great lap, and then 100 meters before the finish, I'm just taking my foot off the throttle so I can start
Yeah.
at least in the middle of the pack.
Right.
And I've got 10 less cars I have to fight
Yeah.
through.
Can you imagine like a grid where we're starting with like Bottas and Zhao P1, P2? Max and Lewis in like
But that's the thing. I don't think you would.
like
I think you would have people
1920th.
just. I think you would have people taking dives, and
Yeah.
Bottas and Zhao would still start in the back
They're
because
like, how
everybody
are
else
we
is
still
starting in the.
here?
Yeah. Everybody else would just dummy it and just, and
Yeah.
then they're still starting in first because we
Yeah.
happen to reverse the grid.
Yeah. They're like, what the hell? You just can't
Yeah,
make it out of here.
yeah,
But yeah. All right. Well, we'll see what happens with Formula E
yeah,
qualifying. I will
yeah.
have to tune in and watch that. And hope that they don't bring it to Formula
I
One.
mean, I still think it's pretty ridiculous, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. A little bit.
yeah.
A little bit. But I think
Oh
that's
no, no,
oh, fresh
no.
set.
Yeah, fresh set and dirty hair.
I am going to say I'm going to go with the obvious one. Max clinching the fourth championship. Uh, Part of that is because I don't know how many more championships Max has.
You don't think he has many
No,
more?
no, I don't. There may be one more. I don't think it's next year though. I don't think he's doing 5 straight.
So 5 straight. The only person who has won 5 straight championships was Fangio. So I think there's only one person who's ever won 5 straight. I think next year will be the toughest year if he can pull. See, some people said this year was the toughest year. I still think 2021 was his toughest year,
Mm-hmm.
just for everything he went through.
Yeah,
But potentially, if he were to win next year, I think it could be the hardest one to win
the
because
hardest
he was
one
only
to win.
fighting
Yeah.
one car in
What?
2021.
Yeah.
This one, he's fighting 8 next year, probably not 8. Sorry, what's that? 6 cars,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that could possibly be the hardest one to win.
Yeah.
I think he could do it as long as Red Bull could keep up their end.
Yeah.
I
I
still think
think
he's the best driver on the grid.
I think I'm also a little nervous about Lewis. Nervous in like a good way, Lewis in a Ferrari. With the current Ferrari, assuming they keep everything that they've done well this year and bring it over to next year and
Well,
improve on it.
they're making specific changes because of the way Lewis likes his car.
Right. So
So
I'm
they might not have a good start to the season.
oh yeah. Or Lewis might not have a good start to the season.
No, I think like Ferrari, as in
In
their car
general.
setup. Not that they don't know how to set up a car,
Yeah.
obviously, but it's taking away from what their design is.
Yeah.
1 year
Yeah.
after we get into new design. So
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think so. My fresh set is Max winning the fourth. I think, everybody last year was like, it was just game over. He didn't have any competition. He won it with competition and not just one person.
yeah,
I think this was the year that people can say he worked for it. It wasn't just handed to him. Whatever everybody was saying, it wasn't stolen like the first one.
yeah.
I think this is a good one for him.
Okay, that's a good one.
It's
I
the
wasn't gonna pick
obvious
that
one, but
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't gonna pick that. I was trying to stay away from the Max one. My fresh set is going to go to uh, the Williams mechanics.
yeah,
They have been overworked. They
and
have
underpaid.
probably after the amount of work they've put in the last 3 weeks or whatever. Um, they have done such a good job to keep their team just on track. They deserve all the kudos in the throughout that paddock.
Yeah,
Just for the amount of stuff that they've done to just keep racing.
yeah,
So good on them.
yeah.
They're my fresh set of this
That's good.
weekend.
That's a good one. I mean, they've been put to the test.
Fuck. They better have Williams better, regardless of how much they've paid in damages.
Everybody
They've
gets
better
bonuses.
taken, not even just that, like take them out to the most expensive steak dinner you can find.
Yeah.
Take them to Gordon Ramsay's, bottles of Sassicaia,
Yeah,
strippers and cocaine, whatever they
My
want. They're in Vegas. It's fine.
it's
I'm sure there's a
pretty
few of them.
Vegas.
I'm
They
sure
gotta
there's a
fix
few
the
of them that would be
car.
fine.
They have to fix the car before next weekend.
Don't worry, that's fine. If the cocaine will help them do that.
Jeez, keep them awake. Jesus.
Yeah, they better have been compensated well, very, very well.
Jesus. Um, Dirty air, I would say is kind of like a again, I didn't want anybody to get hurt, didn't want anybody to crash out or anything, but it's kind of I feel like we got cheated a little bit that we didn't get to see them starting side by side, Max and Lando. We didn't get to see a fight. This was the
Oh, you're
race
going
that
to the F1 coverage.
well, no, I mean just no, they're racing. They just weren't
Oh,
they
okay.
weren't side by side. Like it was you'd think, okay, this is the one. You'd think Lando would be hunting him as much as he was or could have. Um
So for the amount that we hyped up in our own heads of what
yeah.
was possibly to come.
Yeah, and then we thought you usually think one of them's going to be first and second. Now they're in like they're not first and second.
No.
They're somewhere in the middle there, side by side. They've got to go through people. I was thinking there was going to be some sort of drama with them and there wasn't. So,
No.
I mean everybody kept it clean and everybody won fair and square, fine. But it would have been nice to see a little bit.
A little bit of drama.
Yeah, just a
Yeah.
little bit. Yelling, "What is this guy doing?"
Yeah. He's
Just
such
a
an
little
idiot,
bit.
man.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Okay, that's a good one. My dirty air is going to be on the ridiculousness of Ferrari trying to control their drivers, basically, essentially, cuck one driver over another. There was no need for it. It was
Yeah.
absolutely useless, absolutely stupid. You make your team look weak,
Yeah.
especially because one driver's not listening to you, the other one's crying like a baby.
Yeah.
It was absolutely unnecessary,
Yeah.
uncalled for. You've created a bigger problem for yourself, and it was all to serve your own image.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I thought it's not a good look
The team
for
just looks unhinged.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
like,
absolutely, yeah.
and you shouldn't be at like the, third last race. Like at this point, you should have it together, not falling apart.
And
Like,
if you're a Ferrari fan, I'm not thinking, okay, Carlos is gone next year. We have Lewis and Charles. Now I'm thinking, if
mhm.
Charles doesn't get his way, what problems does this cause?
Yeah.
If there's a problem between the two teams and the team can't manage it, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah. And we've got two. I mean, we don't see much of like I wouldn't say there's much of like a Charles ego per se, but when you have been the Ferrari golden boy for so long, and then now you have the biggest name in Formula One coming to be beside you, what's egos are going to fly.
Yeah, yeah,
So we have to regulate this before
yeah,
the end of the season and before next season. So, um, the downfall of Ferrari, as I'm sitting here in my Ferrari sweater, but
just
um
again, just drumming up drama in your own
yeah, drumming up
head.
drama. But yeah, no, I fair enough. Ferrari looking a little
Get your shit
funny.
together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, basically. All right. Well, that's it for us, but you can find us on all social media, TikTok, Instagram, uh X
X.
at Fresh Set Podcast, and then we're also on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts at Fresh Set Podcast. Like, share, subscribe, follow, link, I don't know,
Thumbs up.
thumbs up,
Comment.
turn on auto downloads. All of that helps us out. And we will be back next week. We've got a sprint in Qatar and race in Qatar, and we'll be back.
Yeah. Grab a fresh set.
Bye.